Hi, I'm Zah here. Today I'm going to be talking about Apple and how the new MacBook Pros represent a significant shift in their strategy. The new MacBooks are beautiful machines. I've had a chance to try one out. The keyboard is superlative. The screen is crisp, saturated, colourful. The form is on point. A beautiful, aesthetically pleasing laptop, albeit there is a notch on the screen. We'll come to that later. So why does it represent a shift in the strategy of Apple and what it means for the future of their laptops and range? Traditionally, Apple have maintained a belief in the closed-boxed ecosystem. Minimize connections in and out so that there is greater control of software in a machine and greater control of the hardware that works best with it. For example, we've seen that with MFI, lightning ports, and lack of headphone jacks and connectors from USB-C before you go out to a HDMI. Let's be honest, the previous range of MacBooks, MacBook Pros and MacBooks with their restricted connectivity have represented a barrier to ease of use, a barrier to practicality, but moreover, it's increased the difficulty of getting a job done. Having to connect a dongle to connect to a HDMI projector, having to connect adapters to connect additional screens, having to rely on external hard drives for storage. For example, when they took away the SD card slot, they've all been frustrating things that have limited ease of use and ease of productivity and what professionals are looking for in a Mac, in a computer. Why did they do that? It's a little bit difficult to say because it extends beyond the concept that they wanted to create a closed box system, because what in effect they done was limited the appeal of a pro level laptop to a core user base, professionals who need a computer to get a job done, a portable one, a laptop, because sometimes you need to be editing Photoshops on the move. Sometimes you need to have that laptop ready to present a movie or presentation, and you just want it to get the job done. They took away a significant thing when they restricted the ports. So why have they gone now back to a position of, let's just say, increased practicality? It's sort of unlike Apple to do that. It actually represents a step backwards. It's interesting why they've done this, because people have developed workarounds and become accustomed to using them. For example, USB-C adapters, USB-C storage, and also USB-C monitors. I'll tell you why. I think by reintroducing ports, connectivity, Apple can sort of now justify their pro level nomenclature on the MacBook. Number one, along with that comes a higher price of entry, and suddenly it's no longer nonsensical as a pro user to have a MacBook Pro, because it appeals and it addresses some of the concerns that we were left with when they limited the connectivity of that Mac. But why is this a step backwards for Apple? In some ways, it demonstrates a concession that the core user base were correct in their feedback, but also it's an acknowledgement that they may have got things wrong. To reintroduce ports on a Mac that they took them away from is a big deal. Apple do not make steps backwards like this often. They really don't. And I have some theories on this. Number one, the iPads are becoming increasingly powerful and have increased function. When you take away ports from a MacBook, you're almost, apart from, let's forget the operating system for a minute, you're almost creating too close margin between the iPad Pros and the MacBooks. Really, what's the difference? Operating system and a clamshell design whereby one's connected to a keyboard and one isn't. Of course, with the iOS and macOS, there comes different app functionality. But now, with a pro level function set on a MacBook Pro, for example, suddenly there is a big differentiation again between the iPads and the MacBook. They can now separate and increase the user base of the MacBooks amongst professionals, whilst increasing non-professional uptake of the iPad, which they will more and more cater to with the expanded range of capability of iOS and the apps that are using that are designed for iOS. So although it seems a step backwards, I think it's part of a strategy whereby Apple want to appeal more to key and distinctive user bases. And what does it represent for the future of Apple? It's interesting because it actually demonstrates a greater commitment to professional users. We've depended on Macs for a long time to get a job done, and let's be honest, the last set of MacBooks were average at best at helping us facilitate our work. These new MacBook Pros represent a big change into that. Let's talk about some of the negatives of the new MacBook. I see it as a flaw that there's a notch in the screen. It wouldn't have taken much engineering to eliminate the actual notch form and have a camera embedded in a thinner bezel. Really would not have done. The weight, they're hefty laptops. These are not lightweight laptops. These are not things you want to be carrying around in your rucksack for too long. But they're pro, and most people just going to leave them on their desk. The other negative I should address is the price. They are phenomenally expensive. I spec'd one to over 6K, and I thought that was a reasonable spec, but at an enormous price. You know, they can now justify it because they're now selling pro laptops to pro users. If you want pro specs, you can pay for them. Of course, the M chips are pretty super fast in themselves anyway. I think it represents a shift in Apple into a less commercial appealing company again, because I think some of the users are on the brink of becoming alienated by Apple's constant addressing of the masses rather than their own uses, than their own professional cohort of users. So there's my thoughts on the new MacBooks. Great laptops, superlative keyboards, amazing screens, super fast, great form, and a step, although backwards, in the right direction by the reintroduction of ports, which really are going to help facilitate productivity. They really are going to help shift loads of these MacBooks, especially amongst pro users whom have been neglected, whom have had to make compromises and suffered in their productivity levels. Great laptops. Look forward to getting my own. Thanks very much, everyone.